They have the tiebreaker edge on the Giants. No, they lost to 20.
The Giants have the tiebreaker.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's probably going to be the Giants now. Washington is my pick, but obviously I'm an idiot.
Washington will wind up winning that division, he says. Meanwhile, let's talk about a team that will not only likely win its division, but will have all kinds of expectations on it heading into the playoffs, and that is the New Orleans Saints, who get a lot of praise for their performance in a loss against the Chiefs on Sunday. But despite the good vibes, Sean Payton was asked yesterday why anyone should expect the Saints to go on a title run given the team's postseason struggles and heartbreak the last 3 years. Here's what he said.
I think there's a little laziness relative to research and saying, well, they get to the playoffs, they're one and done. Not really. Will it need to be the Super Bowl? Yeah, probably so. I mean, but you know what? That's a good measuring stick, and that gives you an indication of how organizationally the culture's changed.
So I thought that was a very interesting thing for him to say. Dominique Foxworth, as you heard it, what's your reaction?
You know where I stand on these sorts of things. Good coaches like Sean Payton recognize that they can use the media to their advantage. He is talking to his players. He's resetting their mind. He's finding something to point to, an enemy that they can all look at. Right now, he's just saying, like, no one thinks we can do it. He's doing the same thing that coaches do. He's a smart man. He's doing this right now. But I think that all the things he said also are very true. The culture in that organization must be incredible. To consider that they bounced back from the Minnesota Miracle and also that missed pass interference call to be able to still be competitive going forward, like stuff like that crushes teams. So I think he's right, and I think this team has not peaked too early. They'll be fine in the playoffs, and peaking too early has nothing to do with Drew Brees' arm strength, which I think is going to be the deciding factor on how far they go.
Well, listen, I have to say this, Dominique. I agree with the first part of what you said, which is that I think Sean Payton is talking to his players through the media. I have to disagree with the second part. They have peaked too early the last few years. That may not be the reason they get knocked out. But Ryan Clark, it feels to me like 11 weeks into the season every single year, they look like the best team in the NFL. And by the time they get to the playoffs, they don't. I don't think that's an unfair way to characterize the way the last few years have gone in New Orleans. What do you think?
I mean, I think they've played extremely well during stretches of certain seasons, and they lost some games. I mean, you can't expect Stephon Diggs to catch a ball and Marcus Williams to run right by him. You can't expect an official to be looking at Roby Coleman, hit a guy before the play, hit him in his helmet, and not throw a flag. And so those aren't excuses. Those are things that just happen. And yes, you have to win the football game, but I don't see it this way. Listen, when Master P, when they dropped the True album, they thought that could have been their height. But later on, we got Make 'Em Say, right? We signed Mia X. We signed Mystical. And that's what the Saints have done. Every year they've come back and found ways to be competitive. It is about a culture. It is about a belief. And so when you look at this team going into the playoffs, playing great defense still, Drew Brees having to get back in the rhythm, and where they were against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game where Drew didn't play well early, this is one of the best teams in the NFC. And they have to get breaks. Things have to go right. But that's everybody. That's every season. And I think the Saints are right in the thick of the NFC hunt, just like the Packers, just like the Seahawks, just like the Buccaneers. This isn't a team you want to play or you can count out right now.
What's the look on your face, Nate?
Oh, no, I just was wondering. I wanted to ask Dan who he thought Emmanuel Sanders is. Is he Snoop Dogg, Mia X, Mystical? Who is he in this analogy? Who did they sign? Yeah, obviously, I'm giving you a chance to bounce back from your rough start earlier.
You're not putting me in the best position to succeed. I got to be honest.
That's exactly right. That's terrible coaching, Dominique. That's just awful coaching. You got to know your talent. Okay, that's like actually asking Mitch Trubisky to play the West Coast offense. That's terrible coaching.
I gave him multiple choice. That's an easy dump. Just say, I don't know, Mystical, and I would have said, way to go, taking over for the 9-9 in the 2000.
Hopefully, when we do the show live, we'll get all this right.
If I could somehow circle this back to the place that I thought it began, it would be to say that part of it. Look, I understand that game they lose to the Rams, it might be the worst call of all time, but the reality is they didn't play well that day, and they didn't play well in the playoff game last year against Minnesota when they lose at home. And they have looked, and part of it might be that Brees, we have said consistently.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Can I sit in your seat, Greeny? Can I sit in your seat?
Sure.
Every season, can you pick the winner of the Super Bowl by how they're playing in Week 11?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not, right? So we can't now place this on the Saints and say that they underachieved in the playoffs. Getting to an AFC championship, even when you're the number one seed, is difficult. And losing that game happens from time to time. I don't necessarily know that it's about peaking during the middle of the season as it is executing in those moments. There's been some moments that they haven't executed, but that isn't to say that they peaked too early and weren't in the hunt late in the season.
Come on, Dan. You got something to say. Save yourself, Dan. Say something smart.
We got it. Supposed to go to NBA. I was at those last two Saints playoff losses. They had the chance to win the game, even after the pass interference penalty.
Dan.
They played lousy against the Vikings last year.
Dan.
You can
Warming
learn from
up
those
there.
experiences and be a better January team, and that does not mean that you're a terrible team.
To more traditional football conversation, and it means this. What is going on with the Steelers? Every week it seems to be something different. In week 13 against Washington, it was all the drops. They dropped 7 passes, their most in a game over the last 15 years. That handed them their first loss of the year after starting 11-0. Then they followed that up last week at the Bills. They converted just 10% of their third downs in Buffalo. That was tied for their second worst in a game that Ben Roethlisberger had started, so that felt bad. But then it seemed they had a get-right opportunity on Monday night against a bad team in Cincinnati. But they were the bad team that night. Big Ben completing only 8% of his passes that he threw at least 10 yards downfield. That was the worst by Roethlisberger in a game that he finished over the last 15 seasons. So just in every conceivable way, it has been a precipitous slide for the Steelers. And so, Ryan Clark, I start with you as my former Steeler here. I feel like all season long, I've been trying to get you more excited about the Steelers than you've wanted to be back to when they were, putting together this perfect run. Now maybe I'm starting to see a little bit of why. Can they turn this around in the next 2 weeks?
Can they? Yeah, they can. Will they? I don't necessarily believe they will. Sometimes you just don't have the people. And you look at defensively, they've lost those guys, the Bud Duprees, the Devin Bushes. You're not even playing with Spillane and Vince Williams at linebacker. But when you watch this offense, where's the physicality? Where's the inversion of the line? Where's the inverting of the line? You look at the 3rd and 1 that Snell barely got. It's because the linemen were in the backfield. And now you go to your aging quarterback. And I said it a few weeks ago. They're putting too much on Ben Roethlisberger. You have no run game. You have no play action game. You try to throw short passes in order to create shorter gains, to get runs and catches, to try to pick up first downs. And you can't push the ball down the field. So where do you go? That's all of football. You're not making the turnovers and pressuring the quarterback and getting things done defensively. You can't move the ball offensively. And when you lose a game to the Washington football team who is playing better, you say, oh, okay, that happens. And then you come back and you lose to the Buffalo Bills, who are probably the second best team in football. You say, okay, that happens. But the Cincinnati Bengals, with Ryan Finley, a dude that they didn't necessarily even know if they wanted to start and play the football game, those are things you can't do. As players, you have to have a certain level of pride. As players, you have to understand that you need to fix things. And the Pittsburgh Steelers don't seem like they have the ability to do that right now. My question is, who can they beat in the playoff picture?
Right.
This week, we have a chance to find out.
That's the most damning part. That's the most damning part to me, is that they came off of 2 losses. And